Hi, class. For this lecture, we're going to look at social psychology, and we're really going to explore these ideas of how prejudice, discrimination, and stress impact our coping skills and just overall health and well-being. And so when we get an understanding of these concepts, we gain a little more insight into the complexity of human nature and how things like societal factors affect our individual health and well-being, and that affects us as a group too, because as human beings we are social creatures and we are supposed to be here working and getting along with each other. It's our individual differences and uniqueness, call it your peculiarities, whatever. Even though human behavior, it's a spectrum and we're all capable of being on any point of that spectrum, we're still all individuals and we each have gifts to share with society. So we're looking at social psychology. We're looking at the scientific study of how individuals' thoughts, feelings, and behavior are influenced by the presence, actions, and even mere imagination of others. So Carl Jung came up with, well, Carl Jung and then Carl Rogers, humanistic psychologist, added to the idea that when it comes to our self-concepts and self-perceptions, we have different ideas. So, we have the person we think we are, we have the person we want to be, we can add the shadow in and say we have the person that we do not want to be, and then we have the person that we think that everybody else sees us as. And so when we put that in a social context, every person, other individual that you will ever meet in your life will form some kind of concept and idea about who you are as a human being, as an individual. And for the most part, they're wrong. And so what do? You got to find, this is where Carl Rogers comes in, you have to find congruency among those ideas you think of yourself, of who you think you are, who you have been, who you do not want to be, who you want to be. Oh, and we'll add in like, who you really are if you be honest with yourself. And it's finding the congruency among all those ways that you think about yourself that really need to influence you as an individual. You guys, everybody is unique and special, and we all have gifts to give to society. Never let anybody tell you differently. People who are successful, they always had the same story. They were told no 1,000 times, and that's okay, guys. It only takes one time to be, that's the key to success, is that you do not give up. And, when it comes to social psychology, and looking at how our thoughts, actions, and behavior not only influence other people, but influence us, and then how they influence us and our perceptions of the world and ourselves. It's important that we're always trying to be open and maintain and approach every person and situation from that space and that place of compassion, respect, and understanding. And so what we're really looking at with social psychology are how, these things we do as groups, our social interactions, our group dynamics, our cultural influences, how they play a role in shaping our belief systems, attitudes, personalities, and perceptions on life. All right, so just a couple definitions here, since we're going to, mention these terms a few times throughout the lecture. So social psychology is the scientific study of how people think, feel, and behave in social situations. Prejudice refers to the negative attitudes and beliefs that individuals or even groups may hold towards other individuals or groups because of a particular membership. So, the main types of prejudice and discrimination. It's usually based on skin color, ethnicity, religious affiliation, sexual orientation. And then, sometimes, guys, we have a lot of different subcultures in the United States. So, I mean, we can break it down to say, like, people who are like geeks, if you want to put somebody in that type of category, that there's prejudice and discrimination. Say someone's a gamer, that could be prejudice and discriminate. You're a gamer, you live in your mom's basement. These are all stereotypes that are based on these prejudicial and discriminatory thoughts that we have about other people. And so, stereotypes are untrue, unfalse ideas that we have about others that have been perpetuated throughout human history. And so this is one of the interesting places where history and psychology meet, because a lot of how America was founded and formed and the different transitions and changes we've gone to, some of these world events, World War I, World War II, these big things that had happened to us throughout history as humans, propaganda has played a big role in that. And so that just means that psychology has played a big role in all of those world events, and shaping people's perception of those, and prejudice and discrimination. Now, I'm not like defending any group here. I'm just saying how you know these prejudices that we share, that we still kind of hold, and these discriminatory behaviors that we still exhibit, they are something that's kind of embedded in us and that have been reinforced throughout history. And so, that's where, as human beings, though, we're pretty awesome because we have the ability to learn and grow, and we have the ability to choose what types of behaviors we want to continue and what types we do not want to continue. And so, once again, it's always better to go with the, approach every person and situation with compassion, respect, and understanding. Of course, at the same time, you want to be safe too. If you're dealing with somebody in a negative situation or an unsafe situation, the best thing to do there is just to move along. All right. So when it comes to recognizing biases and unequal treatment, based on, these social categories, like I've mentioned, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, religious affiliation, cultural affiliation, maybe even some type of subcultural affiliation, there are ways that we can, we can try to be a more positive and productive influence on our society and be those, social agents of positive change, or positive agents of social change, however you want to say that. So biases can be a little difficult because no matter who you are, we all have a bias for something. And, you prefer chocolate ice cream over vanilla ice cream. That's a bias. You like roses and don't like dandelions. That's a type of bias. And those seem like very innocuous biases because they're not hurting anybody. And so as social creatures that need each other to get along, this is where some of our self-regulation traits or skills, you could say, come into play. So social psychology is all about looking how we interact with others. And even though they say, there's the theory that if we have no government, we'll have no civilization. So we'll be back to like the 1300s and everybody raping and pillaging and plundering. And maybe that's so. But, I do not think that's going to be all people exhibiting those behaviors. And why? It's because self-control, self-regulation, capacities. We all, just because you can do something, it does not mean that you should. And in order to cooperate and get along with each other, there are certain behaviors we have that are desirable and certain behaviors that are undesirable. Like, people like to go out to, let's say, like a restaurant or a bar and a sporting event and hang out, but people don't want to get in fights at those types of events. That's a self regulation skill, or more lack of that. And so when it comes to recognizing our biases, it's it's a good thing. It's part of our individual growth and development as individuals. And, the more we can recognize those biases and learn from them, then, the more the compassionate, respectful, and understanding that we can be. And so when it comes to things like prejudice and discrimination, they can have negative effects not they can have, guys, they absolutely have negative effects on mental and physical health. And then, that's going to affect your emotional health and your spiritual health. And so that's why it's always best to treat others how we want to be treated, and, increasing awareness and empathy with others, reaching out to people that may not be like us. And then, number one, guys, even though it's listed last, never make assumptions about other people. If you break that down, assumptions, it just means you make a blank out of me and you. You guys know what I'm talking about. All right. So when it comes to reducing prejudice and discrimination, of course, creating awareness and fostering empathy are very crucial steps in the process. And then just like anything in life, education, doing activities, events that allows different groups of people to communicate and like interact with each other, things like even celebrating cultural diversity days or cultural heritage, and encouraging all of the community to come. These are great ways to get different groups of people that may not know anything about each other to come together. And then that's just an opportunity to learn and grow. And then, of course, when it comes to the business side of it, diversity training, inclusivity policies, advocacy for equal rights, those are all ways that we can reduce and address prejudice and discrimination. All right. And so when it comes to stress and the way we cope with that, absolutely, social situations can be extremely stressful at times, right? And so the way that other people influence our life, that can cause us stress at times. And then, sadly, there are people that want to hurt us. And so, we have the stress over the unknown, and the factors of people wanting to harm you. All right. So stress not only leads to negative health outcomes physically, it also, affects us emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And, coping mechanisms are the types of activities, strategies, mental preparation, whatever you want to call it, things that we do that help us deal with the stress in our life, because stress is not something that we are ever going to get rid of. In fact, it is something that in our early days of, our prehistoric early human days, stress was actually a good thing. It was kind of like the alarm bell that helped you survive. But with the way technology has advanced and grown and is so complex, stress is it's definitely something that causes us more grief and anxiety. So, exercising, meditation, deep breathing, talking to a friend, getting professional therapy if needed, interacting with animals, walking in the woods, eating a healthier diet, all of these things are ways that we can help mitigate stress in our life. So when it comes to stress, we do have short and long terms effects of it. Of course, it can make you tired. It can make you depressed. It can, actually get to the point where it may even cripple you. It can give you high blood pressure and just, all these just bad physical effects. And when it comes to stress, that is the way the body responds to any demand or challenge that requires adjustment. Okay. So, something's going on, your body's reacting to it, and you got to find a way to cope with it. So, coping strategies are the conscious efforts individuals use to manage stressors, emotions, and the resulting physiological responses. So, how does that make you feel physically, right? And, when we understand how individuals perceive and cope with stress, that's we're more able to promote those healthier outcomes, those effective stress management techniques that we just went over. And so I just have them listed on this slide now. All right. So when it comes to managing stress and promoting our well-being, of course, developing effective coping strategies is pretty important for that. Encouraging problem focused coping, emotion focused coping, and fostering social support networks are good too. So with problem focused coping skills, you're looking specifically at the stressor. With the emotion focused coping, you're kind of looking at your response to that. So the best example I have of that is anger. If someone says something, you automatically get all pissed off and angry, then, for cope that you need to cope with that. So you need to focus on that emotion and why it's arriving. And then you go back to, and then, once you get that, you move to the problem focused coping and you figure out, okay, well, what is the best course of action for dealing with that emotion? Hopefully that makes sense, guys. And once again, things like mindfulness-based practices, stress reduction practices, they just seem to have very good effects on enhancing our overall psychological well-being and making us a little more resilient to stress. And then, as I've already mentioned, animals are a great way to help us relieve stress in our life. Studies show that they raise our serotonin, our dopamine, they lower our cortisol, which is our stress hormone. And so by petting animals, brushing them, just hanging out with them, your heart rate is slowing down, your blood pressure is going down, you're actually breathing a little more normally, so you're getting correct oxygen flow throughout your body and your systems. By petting, you're getting flexibility and lubrication because you're actually like moving your hands and your arms. And then, of course, if you're walking an animal, that's good exercise. And then mentally, like I said, animals, they raise those feel-good hormones like dopamine. Dopamine is the number one neurotransmitter that we need in our life to survive. And so animals being in nature naturally raises our dopamine. That therefore is going to put us in better mood states overall. And then spiritually, animals help us just kind of ground and focus and center so that we are able to complete our task at hand. So and that kind of ends our discussion, guys, on social psychology, prejudice, discrimination, and stress. And so I just have some of the animals to share with you guys on this slide. So these are some of the animals that live with us on the farm. And then there's just a few more of them. And then we got a goat yoga session there. So, all right, guys, in conclusion, effective coping. We've looked at social psychology. We've looked at prejudice, discrimination, how we overcome those things, and the impact of stress on coping and health. the more we understand how these social factors influence our behavior and affect our well-being, the more we build that empathetic and inclusive society where, we can have more positive agents of social change. And when we recognize the importance of effective stress management and coping strategies, we promote overall better mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health and in the group. And that's it, guys. So thanks for watching, and reach out if you need anything. Thanks. Bye.